Children, let us understand the story The Chinese Statue. Story number 6 in your book, page number 59. It's written by Jeffrey Archer, and it is about a little Chinese statue. Let's go to the lesson. The little Chinese statue was the next item to come under the auctioneer's hammer. Lot 103 casts those quiet murmurings that always precede the sale of a masterpiece. The auctioneer's assistant held up the delicate piece of ivory for the packed audience to admire while the auctioneers glanced around the room to be sure he knew where the serious bidders were seated. I studied my catalogue and read the detailed description of the piece and what was known of its history. It's about a statue, the narrator is narrating about it. And the statue, Chinese statue, is there in the auctioneer's place, and in a packed room, the item number 103, that little Chinese statue, was shown to the people. The man who is bringing the antique piece for the sale or auction, he is holding that and looking into that crowd where the people who can buy this kind of piece, that is this masterpiece, will be taken by the people. He is looking into that room, and while that man was holding the statue in his hand, a Chinese statue, little Chinese statue, the narrator is going through about the description of that Chinese statue. So it is read to us. The second paragraph tells about the history of the Chinese statue. The statue had been purchased in Halichuan in 1871. So all about the masterpiece, and was referred to as what Sotheby's quietly described as the property of a gentleman, usually meaning that some member of the aristocracy did not wish to admit that he was having to sell off one of the family heirlooms. Heirlooms means inherited and such a valuable possession. And here he is describing that description, he is reading it, and it is about a statue which was purchased long time before in 1871. I wondered if that was the case on this occasion and decided to do some research to discover what had caused the little Chinese statue to find its way into the auction rooms on that Thursday morning over 100 years later. So the statue was bought 100 years before, and it has been brought to that auction room. The narrator wants to know what is the reason behind that statue has been brought to that place, and it is mentioned that it is a valuable piece of that family, and why that person has brought it to that place to sell it off. That the narrator wanted to know, and he is taking out the history of that. So that is the story about the Chinese statue. The narrator is narrating how and when it was bought and how it was carried to the family is one after the other as a heirloom and inherited substance like a possession. And what made that piece to be brought to that room as an item 103 to be a masterpiece to that auction, and the auctioneer is taking out the piece and calling it out. Lot number 103, that is item number 103, declared the auctioneer, what am I bid for this magnificent example of, like that he was calling out, showing the masterpiece and calling out the person who is ready to buy it. Sir Alexander Heathcote, as well as being a gentleman, was an exact man. So the story about the statue, who bought it, when he bought it, how it has come to this place. So Sir Alexander was a gentleman and an exact man, had a good handsome look. He was exactly description about the man who bought that. Exactly 6 foot 3¼ inches, 6 foot 3¼ inch tall, and his habit, very exact man, perfect man. He rose at 7 o'clock every morning, like his regular routine. He is a perfect man. Early morning, joined his wife at breakfast to eat one boiled egg for precisely 4 minutes. Everything is perfect. The egg which is boiled for only 4 minutes means egg which is not overboiled or hard boiled or less boiled. It's perfectly boiled egg. 2 pieces of toast with 1 spoon of Cooper's marmalade. Marmalade is a jam. And drink 1 cup of China tea. This is his routine breakfast with his wife. He would then take a hackney carriage. Hackney carriage is like a taxi. Nowadays we book the cab, Ola cab and like that. It's like a cab which will be booked from his home in Cadogan Gardens, that is his office, at exactly 8:20 and arrive at the Foreign Office at promptly 8:59, returning home again on the stroke of 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock he'll be back. This is the routine of the exact man, Sir Alexander. Sir Alexander had been exact from an early age, as became the only son of a general. So it's all about the story of Alexander, the man who bought that Chinese statue. And he was the only son of a general. But unlike his father, he chose to serve his queen in the diplomatic service, another exacting calling. So perfect man and perfect order in his work. He worked under queen. He progressed from a shared desk at the Foreign Office. His career, what all he became. First, he became a desk at the Foreign Office in Whitehall, to 3rd Secretary in Calcutta, to 2nd Secretary in Vienna, to 1st Secretary in Rome. So, he had in his office, he had good promotion like that. 3 different places, he became a 3 different secretary. And to deputy ambassador in Washington, and finally to minister in Peking. So while he was retiring, he was a minister in Peking. So all this position he had in his age. He was delighted when Mr. Gladstone invited him to represent the government in China, as he had for some considerable time taken more than an amateur interest in the art of Ming dynasty. So here it's all about Alexander, how he reached Peking, and while he had that news to be a deputy ambassador in Peking, he was so happy as he had that interest, attachment with the art of China. So he liked to be there. This crowning appointment in his distinguished career would afford him what until then he would have considered impossible, an opportunity to observe in their natural habitat some of the great statues, paintings, and drawings which he had previously been able to admire only in books. As a man who had very much attachment and interest towards Chinese art, painting, and he was admiring their work in the books. Now, as he has got an opportunity to go there, he was very much happy and glad to know this. When Sir Alexander arrived in Peking, after a journey by sea and land that took his party nearly 2 months, he traveled to that place, Peking in China, traveling for 2 months. He presented his seals patent to the Empress Zhu Zi and personal letter for her private reading from Queen Victoria. So he has handed over the appointment letter to the Empress, which he has taken from his Queen Victoria. The Empress dressed, now the description about the Empress. The Empress dressed from head to toe in white and gold. She was wearing white, and costume was white and in golden color. Received her new ambassador in the throne room of the imperial palace. In the palace of the Empress, Alexander reached there, handing over the appointment letter as an ambassador to the Empress. She read the letter from the British monarch while Sir Alexander remained standing to attention. Here the culture is described. He was keep standing being an ambassador, but that letter is read by her. Her Imperial Highness revealed. So honor and respect, with the honor and respect, she revealed contents to the new minister, only wishing him a successful term of office in his appointment. So she wished him to carry on his work with a good future. She then moved her lips slightly up at the corners, which Sir Alexander judged correctly to mean that the audience had come to an end. So she just gave a note to the people who were there gathered. So everyone moved. As he was conducted back through the great halls of the imperial palace by a Mandarin. Mandarin is an officer, that means administrative officer of China. In the long coat, he was in the long coat of coat dress of black and gold. So his dress was black and gold. So Alexander walked as slowly as possible, taking in the magnificent collection of, as he had the interest towards the China's art and paintings and sculptures and everything. He was slowly, he is walking in the imperial palace and admiring all the things which are kept over there. Collection of ivory. Ivory is material which is taken out of the tusk of the elephant. So the things which are made of beautiful decorative items which are made out of ivory and jade. Jade is a precious stone, like greenish stone, and the statues which are made out of these things, which were scattered casually. It is filled casually, it is scattered there in the imperial palace. The building, much in the way Cellini and Michelangelo today, lies stacked against each other in Florence. And it is like Florence, how it is, the Michelangelo's paintings are lying there. Their items were there in the palace. as his ministerial appointment was for only 3 years. So that post and the position he got for only 3 years there in China. Sir Alexander took no leave but preferred to use his time to put the embassy behind him and travel on horseback into the outlying districts to learn more about the country and its people. So he took his responsibility seriously without taking any leave and going to place with the helper who has got. On these trips, he was always accompanied by a Mandarin from the palace staff who acted as interpreter and guide. So, as the place is new to him and the language is new to him, he had an administrative officer as a guide. Wherever he went, he was accompanied with him. So, this journey began. The journey of the statue where he bought, which will be given here. So let's see that part in the next class.